Imagine a cold, mist-soaked night on the Truong Son range where a small outpost, seemingly quiet and unimportant, was about to become the epicenter of history. On the night of February 6th, moving into the early hours of February 7th, 1968, at that exact moment, Lang Vei witnessed something every American military advisor at the time believed was impossible. In the suffocating darkness, as the defenders still thought they held the initiative, heavy metallic echoes began rumbling from deep within the forest. No one in Lang Vei knew that in just a few minutes, they would face something South Vietnam had never seen before. North Vietnamese tanks appearing right at their defensive wire. The amphibious PT-76, after crossing hundreds of kilometers of rugged jungle trails along the Truong Son range, advanced straight toward the camp, shattering every American and South Vietnamese tactical assumption. From the very first moments of the battle, the entire balance of power flipped. Lang Vei, the forward shield protecting Khe Sanh, instantly became the center of a battle where surprise itself was the strongest weapon. Lang Vei, through American eyes, Lang Vei was a small camp near the Laotian border, but in the US strategic layout, it held critical importance. A western shield for Khe Sanh and a key link along Route 9. It also formed part of the McNamara electronic fence, the network of sensors and radar the US hoped would choke off North Vietnam's supply lines through Truong Son. The camp housed about 500 troops, US Special Forces A-101 and Bru tribal militia under CIDG. The Americans believed that steep mountains, deep streams, and muddy terrain around the camp formed a natural barrier against any mechanized force. Above all, they insisted tanks, which required open maneuvering routes, were absolutely impossible in this region. That absolute confidence led them to heavily fortify against infantry assaults, but leave almost no anti-armor defenses. And when reality came crashing in, that complacency became the direct cause of a military disaster that unfolded in just a few hours. The hours before the attack, signs that were ignored on February 5th, 2 days before the assault, the first warning signs emerged. During a routine patrol, American and Allied troops spotted large, deep track marks in the mud, unmistakably belonging to heavy vehicles, possibly tanks. Yet when the report reached higher command, it was dismissed outright. They insisted the tracks belonged to heavy artillery being dragged through the jungle. Orders were given, no further investigation. This fatal blind spot completely paralyzed the camp's ability to assess the growing threat. Meanwhile, beyond the perimeter, Vietnamese reconnaissance units had crawled extraordinarily close. They cut through barbed wire, probed for mines, and opened silent lanes for the tanks to pass without noise. Engineers had even dredged 10 kilometers of riverbed to guide the tanks in from a direction Americans never considered. Every action was carried out quietly, precisely, like shadows gliding through the jungle night. By the evening of February 6th, as the camp slipped into its routine calm, only meters away, an entire strike force held its breath. No sound, no light, no mistakes. The steel storm only awaited a single signal. The attack begins. A shock of steel in history. At 11 p.m., the sky above Lang Vei tore open with artillery pounding from every direction. The ground shook violently. Warehouses and bunkers erupted into flames. The defenders scrambled to their positions, but what was coming through the smoke was not just artillery. Through the thick haze, blurry steel silhouettes appeared, growing sharper, growing closer. 4 PT-76 tanks led the assault, roaring straight toward the wire. Their 76mm guns blasted the first targets they touched. In that instant, American tactical doctrine collapsed. Major George Bacon sent a radio message unprecedented in the entire South Vietnam theater. "We're under attack by tanks. I repeat, tanks." It wasn't a report. It was a declaration that Lang Vei had entered a kind of battle the camp was utterly unprepared for. Tanks breached the wire, savage close to combat. The PT-76 did not slow down. They crushed the barbed wire fences, smashed bunkers with point-blank cannon fire, and opened the way for infantry to pour in behind them. In the chaos, American troops fired M72 law rockets, but many failed to detonate. Others missed. A few hit armor but couldn't penetrate. 3 PT-76 were destroyed, but it was too late. The remaining tanks were enough to split the defensive line in half, forcing the defenders into scattered pockets. The battle devolved into brutal, close-quarters fighting. Trenches, bunkers, and storage pits became kill zones. Explosions lit up the fort like a maze of fire, smoke, and screams. Lang Vei was no longer a base. It was a furnace of war. Holding out in the dark, pleas for help that never came. By 2 to 3 a.m., most of the camp had fallen. The surviving defenders were trapped in underground bunkers. A tragedy unfolded at the medical station, where a large group of Bru militia were surrounded and nearly wiped out. Inside the command bunker, the radio crackled continuously. "We are under attack by tanks. Request immediate support. We can't hold much longer." But from Khe Sanh came only silence. Any artillery or airstrike risked hitting the Americans still fighting inside the camp. The Marines wanted to mount a rescue, but higher command ordered them to hold. Khe Sanh itself was under threat. Lang Vei was abandoned, left to fight alone. The fall of the camp at 5 a.m. A PT-76 smashed into the camp's center and fired directly into the command bunker. The last pockets of resistance were crushed. By 6 a.m. on February 7, 1968, Lang Vei had fallen. After less than 7 hours of combat, a small number escaped through the stream behind the camp. But most, over 300, according to several accounts, were wounded, captured, or killed. The impregnable fortress was reduced to ruins. The victory opened the western approach to Khe Sanh and crippled U.S. radar and sensor networks. The battle became a landmark in combined arms coordination and a bold demonstration of bringing tanks through impossible terrain. Lang Vei was not merely a battle. It was a statement that any defense built on complacency can be pierced. A milestone in Vietnamese military history, a lesson in strategy, surprise, and human determination, and a reminder that in war, nothing is impossible.